Good afternoon, everyone. Happy New Year. Welcome to our Ask the Experts today. My name is Erin Pellegrin. Some of you may know me because I often host our education segments with Sue. But if not, welcome to our Ask the Experts streaming live on Facebook. We have a very hot topic to wrap us up for January, so we're really excited to bring this to you. If you're new to our Ask the Experts, we will be engaging. You're welcome to put your questions live in our chat. We will be recording today's segment. So if you know someone that may be interested in hearing more about it, or you want to share this, or you just want to come back and re-listen, it will be available in our Unite for Her Connect video library. So we're so excited. Our topic today is alcohol and cancer. So certainly a hot topic. This has been in the news recently, so we'll certainly address that. And hopefully you have been following along for Dry January, as we've been featuring a lot of our bartender friends from around the world with some really delicious zero-proof mocktails. But before we get into all of that, I want to make sure that we thank our sponsors. So I'm just going to bring up our screen, because as always, we could not continue to bring you these monthly education topics without the support of our sponsors. So today's Ask the Experts presenting sponsors are West, Merck, and Daiichi Sankyo, with additional support from GSK, Lilly, Gilead Sciences, Pfizer, and Agendia. So we are so grateful to their ongoing support as we bring really important topics and speakers like today. So we will try to get through as many questions as we can. So we've got a lot loaded. We got great questions from our community. So we're so thankful that you submitted them ahead of time. Before we jump in, couple reminders, because February is right around the corner and we've got a couple really exciting segments coming to us next week to kick off the month. So first, we have our virtual hangout. Next Wednesday, February 5th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time over Zoom. We're doing a little date night. So we're doing dinner for two, and I will be joined by Sue, and we're creating a delicious menu for two. So let's create a really special date night, whether it's Valentine's, Galentine's, you and your dog, whoever your date is, we'll create a really tasty menu that includes a mocktail as well. And then on Thursday, we have our speaker series. So this is taking place 6 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll be covering solutions for common challenges faced in breast reconstruction with board-certified plastic surgeon, Dr. David Light. So he'll be doing some live discussion and education on challenges patients may face with breast reconstruction and offering some tips and solutions, as well as guidance for how you can talk to your breast surgeon as well. So, of course, you can view all of our education segments in our education network, Unite for Her Connect, and you can visit us at uniteforher.org/UFH Connect. So we'll be sure to post that link in our chat as well. So with that, I want to jump right in, and it is truly my honor to introduce our expert for today. So Dr. Lucy Dela Cruz, who we are so privileged to have part of our Unite for Her task force for women of color, is chief of the breast surgery program and director of the Ourisman Breast Center at MedStar Georgetown. She is also the director of the hospital's breast surgery fellowship program. She is a fellowship-trained breast surgeon who specializes in a number of advanced procedures, including wireless lumpectomies, hidden scar technique, and nipple-sparing mastectomies. She's been published in more than 24 scientific papers, and her pivotal paper on nipple-sparing mastectomy has been cited worldwide. She is currently a peer reviewer for the Annals of Surgical Oncology, and she's fluent in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. And so with that, please join me in welcoming our amazing expert today, Dr. Lucy Dela Cruz. How are you?
Hi, Erin. Thank you for having me. I love doing these series with you guys, so thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. We're so excited to have you. So we know that you're bringing so much information and knowledge about this subject that I'm sure you hear from your patients so often. So I want to jump in first, starting with the news that came out earlier this month. regarding the Surgeon General's updated points regarding labeling of alcohol and breast cancer. So we know that that recommendation circled around adding warning labels on beverages, changing characteristics to make them clearer, more obvious to consumers, even providing guidance on reassessing limits for consumption. So talk to us a little bit about your thoughts on those advisory points. Is this something you think was warranted? Should this have been put out, maybe years ago? What are your thoughts on this new news?
Well, I mean, it's something that we've known for a while. I think you and I were talking about it before this went live. I think we should put label warnings on a lot of other stuff, not just alcoholic beverages. We should be putting it on McDonald's French fries. No offense to McDonald's owners out there, but just on stuff that, we also take, our children are taking. Our children are not drinking alcohol, and they're probably the ones that are going to see a lot of this impact on their health in the years to come. And hopefully, we'll be able to shift the conversation to make that a priority for our society so that we can prevent these cancers that we could prevent. And I don't think it's for us to feel blamed, and I don't want to bring this on to patients who've had breast cancer, because I think it's a combination of things that we are exposed to. I don't think alcohol itself is just the one kind of thing that will put patients at risk, but it is definitely one of the things that we know can increase the lifetime risk of having breast cancer. And I think it's a combination of other stuff, and we'll talk about it during our conversation. I think how alcohol and other factors kind of create this environment where we're seeing a rise, not just in breast cancer, but also in colon cancer, right? And that's why the age of colonoscopies has been decreased because of the rising number of colon cancer in younger patients. And we're seeing the same thing for young women with breast cancer. And so I think that it's not just alcohol, it's a lot of things that should have warning on their label.
Right. Education is power, as we say, right? Knowledge is power. And so having that label, bringing that awareness is power to be a smart and savvy consumer, right?
Yeah, I mean, we did it. I mean, they do it in the cigarette boxes. I know that, in the cigarette boxes here, they're a little bit more subtle. You go to Europe, the cigarette boxes will show you like
are dramatic. Oh my gosh,
lung,
they are very different.
They'll show you an amputated leg. They'll show you all sorts of things that are really gruesome. I mean, I still see people out there smoking. So I don't know how deterrent that is, but at least provide the information at hand. So like if you're even like, maybe like a deterrent from people to have like the second drink or have the second smoke or something like that. I don't know what the data shows as far as like having signs, but I'm glad that they're considering it and they're starting to do it.
Absolutely. And I think this is a good place to start because there is a lot of confusion regarding the link and how the risk is there, like what actually happened. So can you speak a little bit to how drinking alcohol increases risk of cancer, not just breast cancer, like we said, but several different types of cancers?
So first of all, we have to understand that it is considered dose dependent. So that's based on the research, it means that the more you drink, the higher the risk is, right? And what do you say? Well, Dr. De La Cruz, what is the high amount of alcohol? They consider 3 to 6 drinks a week, a moderate amount of alcohol that increases the lifetime risk of having breast cancer. And usually the breast cancer that has been linked to alcohol is estrogen positive, which is the most common type of breast cancer. So how does that work? So obviously, one of the first theories is that estrogen levels are increased with drinking alcohol. And I think it has to do with the fact that if you're drinking alcohol, some patients, we report that they're empty calories. So you have more fat is gained rather than muscle because you're not eating protein, you're having empty calories. And this rise of fat cells, where normally we do store estrogen, women store estrogen in our fat cells in our liver, that promotes higher levels of circulating estrogen. The other thing is that you have carcinogenic byproducts, and that's when it goes to potentially other cancers, right? So the body metabolizes alcohol into acetaldehyde, which is a substance that damages the DNA repair. And this DNA damage causes impaired cellular repair, which is a perfect environment for for cancer to occur. And this is why we're seeing that link between colon and breast and other cancers that are linked to alcohol intake, like GI cancers and throat cancer. There's also the idea of chronic inflammation. So the use of alcohol in a consistent, effort or consistently contributes to increased inflammation. And now I mean, this is a society that I think our younger generation is doing a better job at thinking about how inflammation and sleep and mindfulness, and thankfully we're there where we're being more thoughtful. But when I grew up, nobody talked about mindfulness, sleep, the 5 a.m. club, 4 hour sleep, let's still go. And,
Right.
that in itself causes inflammation, that level of stress and performance. And so
Yeah.
that triggers alcohol itself is a form of when you take it, it triggers inflammation. It increases oxidative stress that leads to a great environment for cancer to grow. The other
Yeah.
thing, it impairs liver function. And what does our liver do? It detoxifies from stuff, harmful things in our body. And that in itself also, as I mentioned to you, we store estrogen in our liver. If you have a fatty liver, you have more estrogen and therefore increases hormone levels. The other thing is that we are now finding out, and we're really, this is the era of the gut microbiome, is that we realize that obviously the gut goes from your mouth to your anus, and it's a really long tract. And so we talked about the skin being the largest organ. Well, the GI tract is also a really large, significant organ. And when we think about it, if you're drinking or eating things that are not allowing that microbiome, that healthy bacteria, that flora
To thrive.
yeah, you're impacting it. And that's what
Yeah.
we're seeing. We're seeing people that have diminished immune response. You have people that have chronic inflammation, and then you have inability to detoxify your body from this toxins that you're ingesting, not just from
Yeah.
alcohol, but the pesticides that we eat, the additives that we have from processed
Yeah.
foods. I mean, I
Yeah.
tell my children, my son is 6 years old and my other one is 11. I hope I'm not traumatizing them, but I always look at the ingredients and I go, oh, I don't know how to read this ingredient. We're not eating that. And they're like, Mom, I don't know what that. Great. If you don't know what you're reading on the ingredients, it doesn't matter if it says organic. It doesn't matter if it says healthy. You're not eating it. Also, if something has 25 ingredients for chips, let's say you're buying plantain chips. Actually, peanut butter is a perfect example. Erin, you probably know much more about this than I do. You go
Right.
to the
There should
store,
be two ingredients. There should be two
two
ingredients, peanuts
ingredients.
and salt, like, and maybe even if salt. Right. Right. Right.
Why are there 35 ingredients in peanut butter?
Right.
And so this is
Right.
again things that are impacting. And lastly, something that a lot of people don't know is that estrogen metabolism also occurs at the level of your gut. There's a gut microbiome that helps regulate estrogen levels through this bacteria called estrobolome. Estrobolome metabolizes estrogen. So when you have a leaky gut, which is called that dysbiosis, this
Yeah.
leads to an excessive circulating estrogen that has been linked to an excess in hormone sensitive cancers, not just
Yeah.
breast, but ovarian, also endometrial.
Yeah.
And then also, as I mentioned to you, we can't clear our toxins. So that's why you have people that are like, I'm always consistently bloated. I have either diarrhea or constipation. I'm fatigued. I
Yeah.
have no energy. I can't sleep. This has to do with the fact that we are in our food ingesting pesticides, ingesting chemicals, ingesting additives, ingesting all sorts of stuff. And then we're exposing ourselves to something that depletes our immune system and our gut from the ability to fight.
Yeah, disease. And I have had a number of members that I've connected with over the years. When we get on the conversation of alcohol, it is not uncommon to hear if someone has moved away from consuming it, and I say, well, how do you feel? Like, what kind of did you notice? And one of the first things that they mention is, my digestion is so much better. I'm going to the bathroom regularly. I'm no longer having bloated or feeling constipation. Like, there's just this improvement in digestion in general. And I think that's really an interesting point that you bring up when we say, remember, your GI tract isn't just your lower GI, but it starts your mouth to your anus, right? And so you're supporting your digestion from top to bottom when you're moving away from consuming alcohol. It's one of the, I think, first things that people may notice when they start consuming less.
So you know what I did? So I actually, in my past life, we used to drink wine at night when
Yeah.
my ex used to come to the house, and we used to open a bottle of wine, have dinner.
Yeah.
I was younger, and I used to only normally sleep 4 to 5 hours a day. And
Yeah.
I got a watch, one of those like Garment watches.
Yeah.
And what I've noticed, and I became very conscious about sleep and rest, mostly during my own journey of like health and wellness. And also
Right.
as I started to realize a lot of these things that are impacting our health, and the fact that I'm no longer young, and that I'm getting older and I want to age gracefully, and that I also want to limit the amount of disease that I'm exposed, or that I can essentially hopefully not have, and be healthy to be able to, like, be able to do things with my children and work out. And so as I started
Right.
my journey, I said, one of the things that I need to do is improve my sleep. So I started tracking my sleep. And one of the things I realized is that whenever I drank alcohol, my heart rate would go down. And
Wow.
my sleep cycles would be shorter.
Right.
I mean, the impact of alcohol, we have no idea. Some people take it because they say they sleep better. Your quality of sleep is not better. And by the
No,
way, lack of sleep also affects your immune system. It affects your
absolutely.
that's oxidative stress, your capability of
Yeah.
of your body to fight infection, to fight
Yeah.
bacteria, to fight
Yeah.
cancer. All of these things are affected by it. So it's one
Yeah.
of those things that, we don't realize. Sorry, I don't know how to turn this off, but um sorry, I have to. So anyway, so yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us, not just from the risk of breast cancer, but overall health. I
Yeah.
think alcohol is
Absolutely.
one of those things that, I'm not saying that you shouldn't have it if you have a special occasion, if you're, celebrating something and you want to have a drink, but I think the alcohol intake that is consistent, weekly or daily, or, every weekend, that is the impactful. It doesn't allow your body to recover,
Yeah.
or to get that gut microbiome to recover from its stress that you've caused it by drinking, or having
Yeah.
ingested alcohol.
Yeah. Good. And so with that in mind, when we're looking at the link with alcohol and breast cancer, um, do you know what that number is in terms of the increased risk for breast cancer for someone that doesn't drink to someone that does? Do you know, like, for someone that is consuming alcohol, they have a 3 times greater chance of developing breast cancer? Or do you happen to know what that number may be, or is that number out there even?
I don't think the number is out there. I know that, for example, when we counsel our patients for post-op, we
Yep.
say cut down on alcohol will actually help you reduce your risk. If you were drinking 3 to 4 drinks a week, or if you
Yeah.
were having just by cutting it, you in itself decrease the risk of a new cancer.
Got it.
The other thing is, let me actually, I mean, I don't have the statistics and I don't want to say something wrong.
Yeah.
I can look it up and find it. I don't want to also get you a bad source, because there's a lot of sources out there that will give you a number, and I don't want to put, numbers
Yeah.
into my,
We can pop that into the chat with the recording afterwards. Absolutely. I
yeah,
think
yeah,
if
yeah.
that number, yeah.
There is definitely something that I also tell patients when they're undergoing chemo, is to cut back on alcohol intake, and to change their diet, because there is, also the idea that that immune system that you're already impacting with alcohol and then getting chemo may also be affected, and also even affect the response that you have to immunotherapy that is now
Right.
being given in conjunction with a lot of the chemotherapy agents.
Right. And essentially, when you are receiving chemo, you're receiving immunotherapy, you want to set yourself up to be as healthy as possible, maintain your strength as possible. And we're hearing, how much of a negative effect alcohol could have in terms of inflammation and supporting immune health. And so it really makes sense that that's something that for sure during treatment you want to refrain from having, just to really make sure that your body can work alongside and tolerate well, and you have the best possible outcome.
I 1,000% agree. I mean, most of our patients here, they meet with our nutritionist before chemo.
Yeah.
And I give them kind of like little insight of like, hey, just exercise, sleep, focus on your eating habits, make sure that if it comes, if it's natural, if it's growing from the earth, if you can
Yeah.
see it, like where it comes from, try to do that while you're doing chemo. I mean, I know
Yeah.
it's hard for some patients to just have organic food all the time and all that. So as long as I go, it doesn't necessarily have to be organic, as long as it doesn't come from a box, doesn't come from a
Yeah.
can, try to do that if you can. And
Yeah.
try to
Yeah.
sleep. sleep and do mindfulness, meditation, yoga,
I know.
all
All
of
the
these
things on
resources.
our passport, all of the
Yeah,
things on our
yeah,
passport, do them
yeah.
all. Yeah.
Yeah, there, I mean, I do meditation at night, and I will tell you, there's studies. There's actually somebody that posted the other day that your cells are listening to your thoughts.
So true. So true.
And it is so true. I mean, just as it is your thoughts, but also your cells are taking in everything that you ingest, everything that
Yeah.
you surround yourself with. This is
Yeah.
why I'm going to bring it back to like what you said at the beginning. I don't think it's just alcohol seeing this
Yeah.
increasing trend in breast cancer or any cancer.
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah.
also ultimately we have to try to preserve our home and our own environment, to be thoughtful of the things that we put in, not through only through our mouth, but through our thoughts, our mind,
Yeah. Everything.
who we
Our whole
surround
body.
ourselves with. Social
Mhm.
media, I mean, you guys are a great place for breast cancer patients to go, but there are a lot of places that they're not good or healthy for them to go.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about healthy in a health state, like a physical, but in a mindfulness place, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And your cells listen, your
Yeah.
body listens to
Yeah.
your thoughts and what you put into them. And so the
Yeah.
same way that I would say we should put labels on alcohol, we should put labels on food, we should also put labels on internet and on things that we're reading out there that impact us,
Yeah.
emotionally, as far as our well-being, the way that we
Yeah.
are interacting with others, have more love and grace towards each other. These are all
Yeah.
things I think that
All
the
connected.
attorney general or the surgeon general left out from that. But I think
We'd like to recommend an update on that.
if I was surgeon general, this is what I would add.
Right,
Listen,
right, right. Lucy's version. I love that.
Lucy's version is a more holistic approach that this is,
Yeah.
and we're also living longer, guys. We are living longer. The other day,
Yeah.
I was reading about Cleopatra, and Cleopatra died when she was like 20 something, and I thought she was really old.
Wow.
She wasn't that old.
Yeah.
She wasn't
Yeah.
that old. And I was like, oh my God, she never went through menopause.
Yeah. So I'm glad you mentioned that actually, because that brings me to my next question regarding alcohol and cancer risk premenopausal versus postmenopausal. Risk the same? Do you
Same,
usually
same.
recommend your guidance, like, guidance for your patients, those, what you normally tell your patients in both subgroups even?
Yes, the same, because ultimately, actually, the way that alcohol works as far as impacting estrogen and impacting
Hmm.
inflammation and all that, doesn't matter
Hmm.
your age. Actually, probably if you're a little older, maybe your immune system's a little, but I don't think it has anything to do with that. It has really to do with the exposure of alcohol, the way that
Yeah.
you live. I mean, I have women who are 75 who are extremely healthy. They play tennis every day, they work out, they eat healthy, their body mass and they're fit, and there are some 30-year-old women that are not in that shape, right? So I think it has nothing to do with age. It really sincerely has to do with the exposure and how you take that in and what it causes in your body to react and how it causes it to react. Definitely, I
Yeah.
think alcohol is also associated with an increased, weight, BMI. And, as I
Hmm.
mentioned to you, we have storages of estrogen in our fat cells, and that increases circulating levels of estrogen.
Yeah. 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 So many different components and things to consider for sure. Um, so, one of the questions we often get regarding this topic, which understandably so, we start calling out types of alcohol. Is red wine better? What if I don't have the sugary beverages? How about vegan wines or organic wines? Are they safer? Is there still the risk for breast cancer and other cancers? What do you say regarding the varying types of alcohol that are out there in cancer risk and just overall, health impact?
Alcohol is alcohol, first of all. I think the one thing that people are under the impression, which it is true, is that, sorry, the sun is setting differently now, that vegan and organic wines may reduce your exposure to pesticides, sulfites, and other additives, but you're still containing ethanol, which is the
Right.
primary linking, component of alcohol to the cancer risk.
Right.
And the body doesn't metabolize anything but the ethanol itself into acetaldehyde, which is essentially a carcinogen that damages DNA, and this impairs cellular repair mechanisms. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Now, I would say if you're going to drink alcohol, yes, you should do it organic because it does decrease the risk of pesticides and sulfites, which also are something that is already impaired by having poor gut or having your gut microbiome impacted. So if you're drinking alcohol and also exposing it to pesticides and sulfites and all these additives, then it's kind of like a double whammy. But it's still going to be considered something that is not safe, or if you're taking it into excess. Again, I'm not saying that if you want to drink alcohol once for celebration of this, you're getting married, you're having, a family gathering, but anything that is done, in excess and consistently and in a kind of a lifestyle basis, then that's a different story.
Yeah, yeah. And we got a lot of questions from our community about that very question. Light drinking, 1 drink per week. Is there a safe level of consumption? Can a person have a drink occasionally if they're celebrating, it's a birthday, or even they're like, Friday night, I'm having my 1 glass and like, that's it. Is there that safe limit? Or what might you recommend to a patient if they were saying, how can I enjoy this little bit of indulgence, but in a way that they feel like they're not compromising their cancer risk? Is that even possible?
So the safest answer is that there's no completely safe amount of alcohol regarding breast cancer risk.
Okay.
Even the low consumption that I mentioned to you, 3 to 6 drinks per week, is associated with an increased risk. Now, there is a risk that is dose dependent, right? So as I mentioned, meaning an occasional drink is going to carry lower risk than having regular heavy drinking. So I always tell, for someone who's in remission or concerned about the risk, if you limit your alcohol intake to occasional use, let's say, like I said, special occasions, less than once per week, or avoiding it altogether is probably the best approach. But definitely you can have it, like you said, enjoy it once in a while. Once a month, let's say, you'll have like a special occasion that you're like, I'm going to have a drink, I'm going to splurge, listen, there are so many non-alcoholic options today.
So many.
After this conversation, I'm obviously going to be targeted by Instagram on my feed on all the non-alcoholic beverages that are out there. There are gins, there are mezcals options that are non-alcoholic. There are mushroom-based drinks. There are plant-based drinks that actually offer you the same taste. Again, they all probably have a lot of additives too. So I usually say, like, look to see what they have, see the ones that are the cleanest, and go from there. If you feel like you want to be at a party holding a cup, which is most of the time, at least what I felt like I needed to do, be at a party and be like in the social setting of like, I don't want to be standing there. You know what I now do? I just order like a soda water with lime. And I look, and when people ask me, they're like, you want to drink? No, I'm having vodka tonic.
Right. I know.
And like,
well, and that, that's a big point. That's one of the things that I think is a challenge for a lot of individuals, is sort of not calling themselves out, so to speak, in a social setting, right? Because maybe they don't want to explain why they don't want to drink, or they don't want to deal with the questions, and they'd much rather just feel like they are participating with the group. And so having these other options, like you said, the zero proof industry is growing. I wish I knew that number, right? Like what was the amount of growth? But it's because the demand is there. More people are becoming aware of the link with how alcohol just affects health in general, and we're asking more for like other options that are available, like different types of spirits or wines or mainline beers, like, and depending on where you
alcohol-free
live.
beer,
Absolutely. I know you're in the DC area. I'm in Philadelphia. Restaurants everywhere where I am in the city and in the surrounding suburbs, a lot of times have options on the menu, right? NA beer, zero proof menu, so that you can order something that looks alcoholic, but you don't have to worry about it having the alcohol.
I used to do that. When I was younger and I used to go out, I didn't drink. And I didn't want to have to explain to anybody why I wasn't drinking. It wasn't really for health reasons. I was just a designated driver all the time, and I didn't want to drink. I didn't want to be in trouble. I was responsible. And I remember just going to the clubs with a glass, and I used to always tell everybody was like, oh no, Lucy drinks vodka tonic. And then sometimes somebody would come up and be like, hey, I got you a vodka tonic. And I'm like,
you're like, thank you.
And then I'll be like, oh, it doesn't taste good. I'm going to go talk to the bartender and replace it. I'll be like, hey, can you get this and give me and it was just mostly about, because I was in my 20s and I didn't want to have that conversation, right? About like, why am I not drinking? Is it faith-based? Is it health? Like, I don't want to have that conversation. I think some young, some of the younger people also are in college and they want to So I always tell them, listen, now there's so many. I mean, I think our younger generation is better at it. They're all more health
Absolutely.
focused.
Yep.
They take care of their skin, they sleep, they track their
Yeah.
exercises, their diet. I mean, I didn't do 99% of the things that 11-year-olds, or my 11-year-old is like, Mom, my quality of sleep last night was 98%. I'm like, oh my God, you are 11 years old. But this is so important. You know
Yeah,
what I
it
mean?
is. It is. And starting from a young age, you're absolutely right. And there was a question which I think will be good to sort of wrap up in terms of talking to the younger generation about alcohol. We'll certainly get to that. But one of the terms that I hear often regarding younger teenagers and just the younger individuals is sober curious. It's the sober curious movement because they are recognizing how it is impacting their health, their performance, their ability to show up to school, their alertness, like how they're just overall feeling, what it makes their skin look like, right? Like they are very well aware and not afraid to say to follow this sober curious way of being, which is amazing.
By the
I
way,
love that.
I want to talk to, just because, I mean, and I always tell people in my office, you always have
Mhm.
to look back without regret. And,
I love that.
I think being compassionate and being graceful with yourself. Science evolves. I graduated from medical school 21 years ago. No, yeah, 21 years ago. And knowledge wasn't always available. Like I just explained
Mm.
to you, right?
Yep.
My lifestyle when I was in my 20s has nothing to do with the lifestyle of a 20-year-old today. Not that I was doing anything bad. I'm just saying, like, the knowledge of exercise, diet, sleeping, mindfulness.
Right.
Um,
Right.
Also, lifestyle changes have provided benefit after diagnosis. Now we understand a lot more than we did. And,
Yeah.
understanding that alcohol is just one factor.
Yeah.
One factor I just mentioned, and I wanted to bring that up because so many people are like, oh my God, I should have not had that drink. There are so many
Right.
factors that are
Right.
not in our control, that are
Yeah.
not in our grasp, that is not even today in our knowledge.
Yeah.
So I think definitely yes to maybe potentially being like, instead of a complete absolute abstinence, being like an informed moderation. It should be like emphasize on being
I love
informed and do
Yeah.
everything with moderation, but also
Yeah.
understand that there are so many things that we are exposed to that are out of our control, that it has
Right.
nothing to do with you doing something to yourself that made this happen or that will put you at risk. It is truly something that biologically we have yet to know why it's happening, and it's kind of the trends that are increasing.
Yeah.
There are things that we may never know or that we can never control. And so I think, like, the same way that I talk to my children about eating healthy, I also tell them, if you want to splurge and you want to be thoughtful because you want to have a piece of candy, I don't want them to live in a box. I want them to be able
Yeah.
to enjoy themselves and to be able to, trying hopefully to give them the tools. And I do the same for my patients, to make the decisions that they feel that they're empowered and that they're
Yeah.
also being graceful and allowing themselves a space and permission to be humans and to enjoy the human physical world.
Experience. Absolutely. Dr. De La Cruz, you could not have said that better. And I love the fact that you said, give yourself grace, because we got a lot of questions also about, like, did I bring this on myself? I shouldn't have had this in the past. But giving yourself grace, right? We're always learning. And what I often say when we're connecting with our neighbors is, or our members, control the controllables, right? Look at the things that you can control. And that's where you can find your information, educate yourself, and make the best decision for you, right? Like you said, you want to give them the tools so that they can find what works best for them so they can enjoy the entire human experience.
Yeah. Our journey here is
Yeah.
temporary and it
Yeah.
is a fragile one at that. So we just have to make sure that we enjoy it, that we live to the most of our abilities to live, and that we
Yep.
don't put all these things that are not ours on our jacket. I have this theory about the jacket that we're given when we're born, and we add all these like lapels on it. And at the end of the day, you have to sometimes remove lapels that are not yours and things that are not meant for you to take along the ride. So
Yeah.
just be graceful again, I think it's not just one thing leading to this. It's one of the few things that we can point at. And actually, I'm going to go back and say that this is the same idea when I was in medical school, that they used to say women got breast cancer because they didn't breastfeed or because they didn't have, like, none of those things, I think, this is obviously in my own opinion, have anything to do with breast cancer. This is like me standing on top of the Empire State Building and saying that just because somebody didn't, I can see like the color of the shirt of the driver in the taxi on the street on the side. It's physically impossible for us to know that knowledge, that's the only things that are going to, and now the same way with alcohol. I think it's such an intricate process, the cancer biology,
Yeah.
that again, it's one factor. It's just one factor
Yeah.
that we're talking about. I think the human experience of what we need to focus on and being graceful. And I think
Yeah.
also exercise, please. If you can, just give yourself 15 minutes of grace a day to exercise and move, at least.
Yeah, I love this. And you've mentioned so much. I know one of the questions that came in sort of touched on, one of a community member that has moved away from some heavy drinking behavior in the past and has really done a lot of her own research in terms of how alcohol affects gut health and liver health and brain health. And you've really done a wonderful job today of really touching on a lot of these other lifestyle factors that any of us can really lean into, as well as we're trying to do the best that we can to support our overall health. I love that you sort of touched on all of these facets, and alcohol is one of them, but it's kind of like all the spokes on a wheel. There's lots of different things to consider that are part of that.
Yeah, I mean, and Erin, you obviously know much more about this than I do, but kind of taking on. I mean, I tell patients just take and probiotics, take like kombucha, kimchi, fermented foods,
Yeah.
turmeric. Turmeric is a great antioxidant.
Yeah.
Blueberries, they're also great antioxidants. Having omega-3 or fatty fish like salmon, that are not farmed, but that are like, consciously raised, those are actually better because they're not filled with chemicals or caught by net. And sleep is so important. Sleep, and sleep is so important. I mean, I'm a single mom of two, and I would tell you that I would love to be able to sleep.
Do you sleep?
You know what I do now? I really, this has been like one of my missions in the last 4 years, is to sleep. I read a book called Outlive, and it talked about living gracefully and not extending your life, but being able to reach a certain age in your life where you're older, but be able to still be be able to think, be able to move, be able to be active. And my dad died at 68, and I lost him way too soon. And I wish he would have. I don't want to blame him, but I'm saying, like, he didn't sleep. He was stressed all the time. He smoked. He was morbidly obese. He didn't drink, but he didn't eat well. And so he didn't get to have the 20 next years of life that I thought he would have, to be able to enjoy them with me and his children, his grandchildren. And when that happened, I was like, okay, I want to be 100. Like, not that I want to live 100, but like, I want to be able to enjoy all these things that my dad didn't get to enjoy. And I think that, even if there is cancer or no cancer, our life here is, like I said, it's fragile, and we're all here for a certain period of time. And so trying to take care of this body that we carry,
as best as we can.
Best as we can, like our envelope or our suit, our body suit that we have. But
I love that.
I mean, like I said, sleep, and then increase fiber. Also, us women, we don't need a lot of fiber. We don't need a lot of protein. So these are things that I try to tell patients too. And I'm sure you do too when they're going through cancer treatment.
Absolutely. I want to cover, we got one other question in the chat, but I do want to go back a little bit to, you mentioned sort of, a patient being gentle with themselves, graceful with themselves when they're sort of reflecting upon perhaps past behaviors. How might you recommend for patients or just adults that have young children, young people in their lives? Do you have any suggestions for how they can talk to the young people in their life about their future relationship with alcohol in terms of risk management, or pointers on how to, have an open discussion of that, especially as teenagers are approaching more of that social scene where alcohol will be present?
Well, I think from being a mom, I don't think I have the right answer to anything of this. I think we have a great social worker, Sarah. I'm sure, I think we've met her, and I'm always like, Sarah, how are we supposed? And she's very thoughtful, and she's very good at like having this discussions with like difficult conversation with parents who undergo cancer and then talking to their children. But one of the things that I always think about, even as myself as a kid, is removing the stigma from things in your household. So
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in a household where alcohol was like, oh, no alcohol. And I remember like I was never really curious about it, but my brother was. And I
Mm-hmm.
think just removing the stigma and saying, hey, listen, alcohol is a drink that adults drink. You could take it when you turn 21. If you choose to have it, these are the risk factors, but not make it like the forbidden fruit. I think it's
Right.
almost like, I think for me, that's what I try to do with my children about everything. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's interesting because we have chocolate in our house because my mom lives with us. So she buys Oreos, chocolates, and this drives me crazy. Um,
Mom.
you know, because she goes to the supermarket and she's like, but I want to buy it for the kids. I'm like, Mom, this is not what we eat here. And it's just because I don't like my kids to eat that. But I
Yeah.
don't make it an issue. They're there. So the other
Yeah.
day, actually, I saw the Oreo cookies and they weren't even open. And I think it's
Yeah.
the fact that I haven't told them that they can't have it. I said,
Yeah.
listen, you can have it. Mommy is not going to have it. I don't
Yeah.
like eating that because I want to be healthy for you and for me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know how mommy is like in her 40s and mommy works out and I do weights and I'm able to get on the bike because I eat healthy and I take care of
Yeah.
my body. I
Yeah.
am not going to judge you. I love you. You want to eat the Oreos? Here they are.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, when I used to not behave that way, they were more like, we need to have the Oreos. And when they used to go to my mom's house, they used to like eat all the Oreos and all the nachos and all the Doritos.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
literally now we have packages that sometimes they go there unopened, like
Mm-hmm.
Cheetos or whatever, for weeks. And I'm like, oh, nobody's eating the Cheetos. And they're like, yeah, we
Yeah.
don't want to eat it. It's not healthy.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
just creating, and I think I'm planning on doing the same thing for alcohols, removing the stigma and not make it like a negative thing.
Right.
And then exposing them to it, say not alcohol when they're 5, but it when they're 21, saying, listen, I'm going to go with you and have a drink.
Yeah.
And then we'll have a conversation and we can read up on things and
Yeah.
things like that. And by the way, this goes, you can apply that to everything. Sex, you can apply this to, protection and being thoughtful about who they say yes to and no to. And, how do you say no? How do you look, all of these conversations, it's just making it part of something normal and not making it something that they feel that they're afraid to come to you for. And I think that
Yeah.
that's something that relationship and that kind of conversation is built up from a candy to then alcohol to then, and like I said, I go to this when we go home and we go to the supermarket, I'm always like, let me see the ingredients. And then now the little one is practicing reading. I go, Marcelo, can you read this? And he'll be like, I don't know these words. There's
There's
apple.
a lot of letters in that word.
He's sixth grade. He's 6 years old, and he's like, apple. And he's like, Mom, what? Actually, the peanut butter was one of them. He's like, Mom, why does peanut butter have so many things that are not peanut? And I go,
Yeah.
this is not a good peanut butter. And
Yeah.
so again, these are things that you just, it's a lot of work.
Yeah. Well, and I like the way you put it. It's kind of, you're taking away that impression of the forbidden fruit, right? You're opening and exposing it and what you didn't mention, but what we are observing is you are a good example. You are the example for your children, right? And I think as parents, in just reading and counseling, what I have learned is that being the example, setting the impression, showing them about it, especially when you're trying to work and influence your children in good ways, being that example is way more effective than just dictating what they should do. And you are the example of that.
Erin is exhausting though. I will tell you, parents out there, it is not,
Yeah, yes,
it is, I'm not perfect at it. There are days that I'm like tired and I'm like, you want
yeah,
to eat, well, I don't go to McDonald's or anything like that, but we have Chick-fil-A
right,
sauce in my refrigerator.
yeah,
And I hate it because it has like 100 ingredients. And some days they want to order Chick-fil-A and I go, I'll make you chicken, like
yeah,
the strips, but we'll put a little Chick-fil-A sauce. And there's
yeah.
compromise, right?
You
It's
do the
so
best that
hard.
you can. Yeah, yeah, you're doing the best that you can, right?
It's so hard. I'm like, okay, fine, we're gonna take out the Chick-fil-A sauce. And they're like, oh, mom is tired. But yeah,
Oh
I
my
mean,
gosh.
it's all a balance. Listen, it's all a balance, and there are going to be good days, and there's going to days that you're going to do really good, and there are days that are going to be again really, really hard, and really you're not going to be a good parent that day. And you know what? Somebody actually once asked me, "You think you could have it all?" And I said, "Yeah." And they're like, what? And I go, yeah, you can have it all, but not on the same day of the week.
There you go.
So one day you're 100% mom, one day you're 100% surgeon, one day you're 50% daughter, 50% friend, one day you're 30% sister, 70% surgeon. The other, and you're so, but you know what? When I do the math throughout the years, I find myself to be blessed because I feel like I have 100% of the things that I've worked for. And it doesn't look pretty. It's not always perfect. It doesn't have to be. The journey is a messy one, but it's a beautiful one. So,
and like you said, it's not about trying to be perfect.
No, actually, there's the beauty of our journey is that it is not perfect. Perfect is kind of boring, actually.
I would agree. I would agree. Okay, I want to wrap up with one more quick question that came in through Facebook. Just in terms of, is there the same sort of risk with cancer in drinks that have THC instead of alcohol? I'm not sure if you can answer that question, but I will throw that out there.
I don't know the answer to that. I don't think that there's anything right now that's like strongly linking THC. The only thing that I would bring up is that there are a lot of additives that they're putting to like gummies, you know, a lot of the THC market now that it's it's legal in a lot of places. You have to make sure that where you go buy, and the stuff that you're obviously the drinks that have THC, what additives they have, like I mentioned to you, right? And the gummies and the chocolates that people are taking now instead of drinking alcohol, what are the ingredients that you're ingesting? Because there are a lot of dispensaries that are adding stuff that's not healthy. So, you know, just be thoughtful of, you know, if you are going to have that, where you're buying it from, what source is your source, and what the ingredients are, especially in the drinks. But yeah, I mean, I don't know enough of those, to be honest. I know that that's now something, again, that's like a trend because a lot of people are saying they're moving away from alcohol. So as long as you're being thoughtful of what you're ingesting, you know, and you're asking questions or looking at the ingredients, if you feel like you know, the ingredients are clean, meaning you can read them, you understand them, they're not chemicals that are produced in a lab, then I think it should be fine. Better than, you know.
Wonderful. Better than the alternative. Yeah, wonderful. Oh, Dr. De La Cruz, thank you. I feel like we've covered alcohol, but we covered life together, which is really wonderful. I mean, I appreciate that because we learned a lot about the risk with alcohol, but it really makes us take a step back and really see that, again, that's one part of the wheel, right? But we really want to be looking at the big picture. And so this is one of those, you know, control the controllable moments and how alcohol plays a role in our life, if at all. But we really want to be looking at the big picture. And I appreciate you for, you know, just reminding us all of that. I feel like I need to take a nap now after this, or at least try to get to bed a little bit early as well. So I love that. And
so I have this integrative medicine of students who rotate in my office, and they're like, you know what, Dr. De La Cruz, your sleep debt could never be repaid. And I'm like, what? I'm like, I'm working, and they're like, once you lose sleep, you can never make it up. So anyways, I've been trying to make up sleep for the last 45 years of my life that I haven't slept.
Unbeknownst to you and myself. Thank you for teaching me that now. So I'll prioritize getting my sleep in every night versus trying to catch up.
You're never going to catch up. Sleep. You'll do better tomorrow. Anyways, wonderful. Erin, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure, and I enjoy it so much.
You are the best. Thank you so much, Dr. De La Cruz.
Bye, guys.
You too.
Take care.
All right. What a segment. So we appreciate everyone that sent questions ahead of time. Thank you so much for joining. Remember, this segment is recorded. So if you want to come back and re-listen or share this segment with anyone, it will be available in the Unite for Her Connect Education Network and in our video library. As a reminder, we've also covered alcohol and cancer in the past in 2 different speaker series. So if you want to dive a little bit more into the education, and there's some presentations providing some more visuals, that's also available in our video library. So we've got so many resources. Definitely check all of that out. And hopefully you'll continue to look at our blog for our zero proof mocktails. You've checked out our videos for Dry January. We've got a lot of information to empower you so you can make the best decision regarding alcohol consumption in your life for you. So thank you so much for joining us. Remember, we have our virtual hangout next Wednesday. Come for date night with me. We'll be cooking up a storm Wednesday at 5 p.m. And then we've got our speaker series, Solutions for Common Challenges based in breast reconstruction. So that will be Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And finally, again, I want to give a big thanks to our education sponsors. Today's Ask the Experts is presented by West, Merck, and Daiichi Sankyo, and we are so grateful for the additional support from Gilead Sciences, Lilly, GSK, Pfizer, and Agendia. So thank you everyone for joining me on Facebook, and we look forward to having you in a future education segment. Everybody take care.